It was a Wednesday afternoon, 2:13 p.m., to be exact, when I got the text. Just one line. Mom and the family are coming over tonight. Should be fun. No question mark. No follow-up. No warning. Just a statement. I stared at my phone for a solid minute. The silence in the house felt louder than ever. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of kids playing outside. But in my chest, everything was still. He had done it again. I checked the clock. For hours. For hours until his entire family, his mother, 2 sisters, their husbands, a couple of nephews, and probably an uncle or 2, descended on our house like they always did. Loud, demanding, judgmental. I looked around. The sink was full. The pantry was half empty. I hadn't gone shopping this week because I'd been pulling double shifts covering for someone at work. There was no time to clean, cook, or even pretend that I had any energy left to host 10 people. But I already knew what Eric expected. He'd walk in the door around 5:30, all smiles and jokes, pretending this was spontaneous and no big deal. He'd charm everyone, sit down with a drink, and leave me to make magic out of nothing. Again, except this time, I didn't move. I stood in the middle of our kitchen for a few minutes, then walked upstairs. I grabbed my overnight bag, tossed in a change of clothes, my charger, and my laptop. I didn't forget my toothbrush, but I did forget to feel guilty. On the way out, I glanced at the dining table, the same one I had polished last weekend after his cousin spilled wine on it, and laughed like it was a joke. I didn't leave a note. I didn't call him. I just drove. There's a little bed and breakfast about 20 minutes from our neighborhood. I'd never stayed there before, but I'd passed it often. That day it felt like safety. It felt like choosing myself. At 5:04 p.m., my phone started vibrating. I let it ring. Then the texts came in. Hey, where are you? Did you go to the store? They'll be here in an hour. What's going on? I had to cancel. I can't do this alone. Call me. I watched the words pile up like dishes in our sink. For the first time in years, they weren't my problem. He canceled, and I ordered room service, sat by the window, ate slowly, breathed deeply, watched the sun set. That night I didn't cry. I didn't worry. I didn't feel like a failure. For the first time in our marriage, Eric was forced to experience what it meant to be without me, and I was beginning to understand what it might feel like to be without him. Maybe this was the first step. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was everything. But either way, I didn't regret leaving. Not for 1 second. That wasn't the first time. Not even close. Eric had a habit of surprising me with family dinners. Except they weren't really surprises, at least not for him. They were planned, arranged. He just didn't tell me until it was too late to say no. The first time, I thought it was a fluke. Oh, I forgot to mention. Mom's stopping by with my sisters. Shouldn't be more than an hour. He said it so casually, so sweetly, like it was nothing. I remember throwing together a charcuterie board and reheating soup, scrambling to make the house look less like a working woman lived there and more like a showroom. They stayed for 5 hours. After they left, I was exhausted, but Eric just stretched, yawned, and said, "See, that wasn't so bad." The second time, I got a heads up 3 hours in advance. Enough time to buy groceries, not enough to breathe. I asked him gently, "Can we agree to at least plan these things together next time?" He nodded, kissed my forehead, and 2 weeks later did it again. By the third time, I realized it wasn't forgetfulness. It was a pattern, a system. He'd take all the credit for being a great host while I did all the work. Meals, cleaning, entertaining, smiling through judgmental comments about my cooking, my job, my apparent lack of kids. "I just thought you'd want to help me," he'd say when I asked why he didn't warn me. "It's your house too. You want people to feel welcome, don't you?" Welcome. That word started to feel like a blade, because they weren't my people. His mother never called me by my name, just she. His older sister would look at the food I served and say, "Oh, I guess we're doing low effort today." That's okay. One of his nephews once asked if I was the maid. Eric never corrected them, never stood up for me. He'd just laugh and say, "Lauren's cool like that. She doesn't let things get to her." He was wrong. I did let it get to me. Every single time. I remember one night vividly. It was last fall. His family showed up without warning again. It was a Friday, and I had just come home from a brutal week at work. I hadn't eaten all day. Eric greeted me at the door with a smile and whispered, "Just smile through dinner, okay?" There was no dinner. I threw together a pasta dish with what we had left, reheated frozen garlic bread, and used the last of the salad mix. I even lit candles, because I still cared what they thought of me, even when they didn't care how I felt. Halfway through the meal, his sister joked that I was so independent, she didn't even need to ask if she could help. Everyone laughed. I swallowed my pride with a sip of lukewarm wine. Later that night, as I stood at the sink alone, Eric came up behind me, hugged me lazily, and said, "Thanks, babe. You really pulled it off. They all said the dinner was great." I didn't answer. I just nodded. But inside, something cracked. It wasn't the lack of help. It wasn't the surprise visits. It was the fact that he never saw it as a burden, because it wasn't his to carry. It was mine, and I started to wonder, if I stopped carrying it, would it all just fall apart? Maybe it needed to. I tried to talk to him, more than once, not in anger, not in the heat of the moment, but in those soft hours between dinner and sleep when the house was quiet and I still had a little patience left. "Eric," I said one night, "can we talk about the dinners?" He didn't even look up from his phone. "What dinners?" "Your family. The ones you keep springing on me without notice." He chuckled, still scrolling. "Oh, come on. You always handle them so well. They love you." That sentence, "they love you," felt like a dare, like a lie I was being asked to carry. "I don't feel loved," I said. My voice wasn't angry. It was just tired. "I feel used. Like the housemaid. The help." He finally looked up. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said softly. "I'm being honest." He sighed and set the phone down. "Lauren, they're my family. It's not like I can tell them not to come." "What do you want me to do?" "Start sending RSVPs." I didn't answer, because, yes, actually, that would have been nice. Another time I tried again, after one of the worst nights we'd had. His cousin brought an uninvited guest who spilled wine all over the couch. I was the only one cleaning while they laughed in the kitchen. I waited until everyone left, then sat on the edge of the bed, facing him. "I need you to understand how alone I feel when this happens." Eric rubbed his eyes. "Why are you making such a big deal out of it? It's not like you're cooking a five-star meal. Most of the time it's just pasta or some chicken." I blinked. "Do you think that's the hard part?" He shrugged. "Well, yeah. I mean, what else is there?" That was when I realized. He didn't see it. Any of it. Not the 2 hours of scrubbing bathrooms. Not the rush to buy groceries with my own money. Not the mental load of calculating seating, dietary needs, drink preferences. Not the emotional toll of pretending to smile while I was dying inside. He didn't see it because he never had to. I started taking notes. Literally. In a small brown notebook I kept in my desk drawer. I wrote down every time he hosted without warning. Every insult from his sister. Every backhanded compliment from his mother. Every hour I lost to unpaid labor just to keep peace. Entry number 14. Brought 4 guests without telling me. One of them asked if I was the cleaning lady. Eric laughed. I didn't. Entry number 19. No groceries. Made dinner out of canned soup and rice. Eric said, "You always manage to pull it off." Entry number 22. Didn't say thank you. I didn't write them to use as evidence. Not at first. I wrote them because I needed to know I wasn't imagining it. That my exhaustion was real. That my resentment wasn't petty, it was earned. One day, I flipped back through the notebook and realized I had logged 27 surprise dinners in 18 months. 27. That's when something inside me changed. I stopped trying to explain. I stopped trying to be understood. Because sometimes the most painful conversations are the ones that never happen, and the ones you finally stop begging for. It was the 28th time. I hadn't counted at first. But by then, I knew the pattern so well I could feel it in my bones before the message even came. I was in the middle of catching up on payroll reports for work when my phone buzzed. Mom and the family are coming over tonight. Should be fun. That was it. No follow-up. No, do you have time? No, are you okay? My fingers froze over the keyboard. I read the message again. Then again. It wasn't even anger I felt this time. Just stillness. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge. 2 eggs, half a bag of spinach, a bottle of hot sauce. Certainly not enough to feed a dozen people. I opened the pantry. Random cans. No bread. No pasta. No snacks. It was 2:14 p.m. They were coming at 6. I didn't bother calling Eric. I already knew what he'd say. Just throw something together, or order pizza. They don't mind. But I minded. I minded that he never asked. I minded that I was expected to drop everything, even work, to accommodate his last-minute plans. I minded that I was no longer a partner in my own home, but a prop in his version of a perfect family. I walked upstairs, calmly, and pulled my overnight bag from under the bed. I packed like someone who'd done this before. Toothbrush, phone charger, a book I'd been meaning to read, my journal. I paused for a moment by the bedroom mirror, looked at my reflection, not to fix anything, just to see who I was. I looked tired, but not weak. Not this time. Downstairs, I unplugged the coffee maker out of habit, grabbed my purse, and just before I reached the door, I glanced at the dining table. Empty, dusty, quiet. A table I had set, cleared, scrubbed, and decorated too many times for people who never said thank you. I didn't leave a note. I didn't slam the door. I didn't even lock it. I just left. The drive to the bed and breakfast felt late. Like I had taken off a coat I didn't realize I'd been wearing for years. When I checked in, the woman at the front desk smiled and asked, "Business or pleasure?" I smiled back and said, "Peace." Room 204. Small, cozy, with a view of the trees outside. I sat by the window with a cup of tea and my phone face down. It wasn't until nearly 5 p.m. that the first call came in. I let it ring. Then another, and another. Finally, a text. "Hey, where are you?" "Did you pick up groceries?" "They'll be here in an hour." "Lauren, seriously, what's going on?" "I had to cancel. I can't do this alone." I stared at that last message for a long time. I can't do this alone. The irony was so sharp it made me laugh, quiet, bitter, almost disbelieving. He couldn't do it alone. But I'd been doing it alone for nearly 2 years. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. He finally saw the cracks in the foundation. Not because I yelled. Not because I threatened. But because I was gone. And sometimes the loudest thing a woman can say is nothing at all. I didn't go back the next day, or the day after. I extended my stay at the bed and breakfast with no clear plan, just a quiet certainty that I needed space. Real space, not a corner of the house, not a quick break, but distance, perspective, silence. Eric tried to fill that silence. He called 7 times the first day. Left voicemails I didn't listen to. The first few texts were confused, then angry, then vaguely apologetic. "You could have at least told me." I looked stupid in front of them. "Why are you making this a bigger deal than it is?" "Fine. I get it. Let's just talk." But I didn't want to talk, because for the first time in our marriage, I wasn't interested in fixing it. I wasn't looking for ways to soften the blow or meet him halfway. I was just tired. Tired of being the only one who noticed the cracks. Tired of handing over pieces of myself every time someone needed something. tired of being praised for my resilience when all I wanted was rest. I spent the weekend doing nothing spectacular. I read. I walked. I slept without setting alarms. I sat in stillness, so unfamiliar it felt like a foreign language. But I was starting to understand it. On Sunday, I called my mother. We hadn't spoken in a few weeks. Our relationship wasn't strained. It was just distant. I think she always sensed I was trying to hold everything together. She didn't press. She just answered, "Hi, baby," like she'd been waiting for me to come up for air. I told her everything. Not just about the last dinner. About all of it. The notebook. The fatigue. The small humiliations I'd swallowed in the name of harmony. There was a pause on the line. Then she said, "You didn't leave your marriage. You left the version of yourself that thought it was your job to hold it together alone." Her words stayed with me. I wrote them down that night in my journal. I thought about that version of myself, the one who'd wake up early to chop vegetables before work, the one who bought candles to make dinners feel special, the one who smiled through disrespect and convinced herself it was kindness. I didn't hate her. She had tried. But she had also forgotten that being loving isn't the same as being available for abuse. That showing up for someone doesn't mean erasing yourself. On Monday, Eric sent flowers to the B&B. The front desk delivered them with a note, "Dinner for two. Just us. Come home." I stared at the card for a long time, then folded it in half and set it aside. He was trying, in his way, but trying without understanding isn't enough. It's not about dinner. It never was. It's about the expectation, the imbalance, the silence I had to live inside every time my needs were treated like noise. That night, I opened my laptop and started looking at short-term rentals. Nothing drastic, just options. Just proof that I could choose something different if I wanted to. Not out of spite, not as punishment, just to remind myself that I had a choice. The silence between us stretched longer, and for once it wasn't suffocating. It was mine. By the end of the week, the calls had stopped. The texts became fewer, shorter, less angry, more careful, almost uncertain. I wasn't sure what that meant. Eric wasn't a cruel man. He didn't scream, didn't cheat, didn't drink or hit. And maybe that's what made it so hard, so confusing. He was 1,000 small hurts, wrapped in good intentions and expectations he never questioned. He didn't see what I carried because he never had to. And now, for the first time, he was carrying the silence. On Thursday evening, I received a final message. "I made dinner, just for us. No guests, no surprises. I just want to talk. Please." He sent a picture. 2 plates. 1 bottle of wine. Candles. Real effort. The kind of effort I used to give and he used to overlook. I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't feel anger or triumph. Just weight. The weight of a choice. I could go back. Sit across from him. Hear his apology. Maybe he meant it this time. Maybe he had learned something. Maybe not. Maybe we'd talk and he'd promise to do better. Maybe he'd even mean it. Maybe we'd set new boundaries, agree on how to communicate, start fresh. A quieter, more equal version of what we once tried to be. Or maybe I'd walk into that house and feel the walls shrink again. Feel the rolls slide back into place like magnets. The same dinner table, the same rug under my feet, the same expectation in his eyes when he smiled and said, "You're so good at this. I don't know what I'd do without you." I didn't know. I sat on the edge of the bed that night with my phone in one hand and my keys in the other. I held them both like they weighed the same, but they didn't. One was a return, the other a direction. I didn't move. I didn't decide. Not because I was afraid, but because maybe for once it was okay not to know. Maybe I didn't need to race toward resolution. Maybe I was allowed to stay in the pause, to sit with the silence and let it speak louder than his apologies. I didn't call him back that night. I wrote in my journal instead. He canceled because he couldn't do it alone. So why was I expected to? The truth is, I don't know what happens next. I might go back. I might sit at that dinner table and talk about all the things we ignored. Or I might keep walking toward something slower, quieter mine. All I know is I chose myself for once, and maybe that's the beginning of everything. What would you do? Would you return and give him another chance? Or would you finally choose yourself for good? Vote below. Share your answer in the comments.